April.
Hi.
It's good to see you again. Thank
Good
you so
afternoon.
much for coming back.
Thank you.
How are you enjoying this fall weather?
It's lovely. We had our windows open last night, and it was so nice to have just fresh air going through the house. It was so nice.
Good, good. Well, first thing I want to do today is just kind of give you an idea of a few things I want to go over with.
Okay.
And then we'll do a mood check like we did during our last session.
Okay.
We'll see how you did with the homework.
Mm-hmm.
Set your agenda, what you want to talk about today.
Okay.
And then also prioritize that agenda and discover what's most important for us to talk about today.
Okay.
And then we may set some new homework.
Okay.
And that's basically not anything to have you do to make the situation harder. It's just because we're only seeing each other once a week.
Mm-hmm.
This just kind of keeps that fresh in your mind.
Okay.
So that what we do in session, we don't lose that.
Okay.
Okay. Just like we said before, everything that we share in this session is confidential.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we feel like there's an intent to harm.
Right.
So you still understand that, okay?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So last time we talked, you were feeling some depression.
Right.
You weren't really sure what was causing the depression.
Right.
So before we get started, tell me on a scale of 1 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
10 being that you feel fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
1 being that you're the most depressed you've ever been. How have you been feeling this past week?
This week was not too difficult. I would think I was probably about a 3.
Okay.
So
that sounds pretty depressed.
Mhm.
Can you share with me why you're feeling that strongly?
right. So I got called. Well, my son got called to the principal's office this week because he had some behavior, and so after that, I just felt really sad and really just kind of done with the day, and I just wanted to just go to bed and just not think about that.
Okay.
It was embarrassing,
Okay.
and my son is misbehaving and he's not doing his work,
Okay.
and I always feel bad whenever that happens.
Okay. Is that something that you would like to put on the agenda for today to talk about?
I think so,
Okay.
because it happens often, and then that just makes me feel bad. So yeah.
Okay. Tell me, how did you do with the homework this past week?
So for this week's homework, I'm gonna find it right here. I think you had asked me to do a thought record,
Yes.
right? And so I did that and just kind of wrote down my thoughts of when there were episodes of when I felt really sad or really depressed or wanting to withdraw. And there were a couple of different times that happened.
Okay.
When I got called by the school for a
Okay.
conference, when I missed a deadline at work.
Okay.
I felt pretty bad about that. Felt pretty. I just felt like a loser. So and then I couldn't.
Can we reflect on that a little bit? You just
Sure.
had the comment of you felt like a loser.
Right.
So it sounds like you're feeling a little worthless.
Definitely. I think. When my kids misbehave, especially when I get called to the principal's office, when my kids misbehave or I miss a deadline or I don't do my job well, then I do kind of feel like I just can't do anything right, Well,
I wanted to share with you that that's what we call a cognitive distortion.
Oh, okay.
And everyone has them. There's usually 3 main areas. It's either that you're feeling helpless,
Mm-hmm.
hopeless, or worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And is that something that we can add to today's agenda as well?
Yeah, I think so.
We can go back and kind of discuss that a little further. So that was the main things that you felt
I think so.
on your thought record for this past week. Tell me, did you have any positive experiences this past week?
Oh, I mean, of course I did. My other kids didn't get called to the principal's office, so I suppose that was good.
That's good.
I had parent conferences with one kiddo, and he's doing really, really well. And then with regards to work, I mean, I did get a compliment from my boss, so I suppose that's good.
Good. Because
But
it's important to focus on those
Right.
positive
I don't
things
tend to
as
even
well.
pay attention to those kind of things.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's normal with everyone too, is like when someone makes a positive comment, especially when you're in a situation at work, you're just already kind of in that work mode.
Right.
And you don't necessarily process those things right away when they're happening. So you shared with me that you have a son that's really misbehaving. You missed a deadline at work. And that you also shared you were having feelings of worthlessness.
right.
Of those three, which one would you like to discuss first today?
Probably, I mean, the one, maybe we can focus on the one that affects me like the most.
Okay.
And that would be when my son doesn't behave. Because when that happens, it just makes me feel like I'm just a terrible mom. Like, if I was a better mom, then maybe he would behave and do his work and that kind of thing.
So, can you share with me some evidence that you are a terrible mom? What kind of things make you feel that way?
Oh, well, I mean, when I get a report that he isn't doing his work, or that he has maybe sassed a teacher, or that he has gotten in trouble at school, that makes me feel like I'm not doing my job as a mom to instill values in him that would, help him make better decisions at school.
And when you get these calls that he's been doing something bad, what's the first thought that you have when you get that phone call? How does it make you feel?
I mean, I feel angry at him, but then I also feel like his behavior is reflected to me. Like it's my fault that he is, not doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Do you have like a certain effect that you feel that in your body too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my face feels warm, and I feel like my heart is like going to beat out of my chest, and I feel a little kind of like jittery, sort of.
Okay. It's definitely a lot of bad feelings there.
None of it feels comfortable.
Okay. So tell me, what percentage would you say your son gets in trouble or misbehaves? Just say on a weekly basis.
On a weekly basis, he probably is not doing well 3 out of 5 days. They have little reports that they send home and stuff, but I don't get phone calls unless it's like really, really bad, like he's on red or something like that. And that's normally at least once a week. Every once in a while, it's every other week, but here lately, it's been every week that he's gone to red.
Okay, so like 20% of the time.
Right.
Okay. So, tell me how he does the other 80% of the time.
You mean like on good days? He does pretty fabulous. I mean, he's really smart, and he can do the work. It's not a matter of him not being smart enough to do the work, but the days that he's doing well, he does well, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that being that 20% is obviously a lot lower than 80?
True.
Would you say that still makes you a terrible mom?
I guess not. I mean, if you put it like that, I guess not.
You just use the word fabulous about him.
Right.
That he does well. So would your time be better processed and used by focusing on the 80% when he is good?
Probably. I mean, he would probably appreciate that, for us to recognize the good things that he does rather than just, you know, when he has an off day, everything just kind of blows up.
And when you get these good things happening from him, what's the thought that goes through your mind then?
Like when he gets a good grade, or if he comes home with like a, you know, smiley face with exclamation points, I feel really proud, and like we high five each other, and I mean, I try to talk to him about how that makes him feel, and, you know, don't you feel proud, and don't you feel happy, and we kind of do like sort of mini celebrations, sort of. So it's always nice.
So kind of what we're doing right now is what's called cognitive behavior therapy.
Okay.
And basically, we all have what's called an automatic thought. Like your first thought was, because your son was doing bad, that means I'm a bad mom.
Right.
Okay. So basically what we do is we have these thoughts that then turn into feelings, like you're feeling that you're a terrible mom. And those then result in our actions.
Right.
And this causes you to feel down and depressed. So that's the action that's resulting from that.
Okay.
And what I want to tell you is those things are perfectly normal. And by what we just discussed, you realized that he's only having these difficulties 20% of the time.
Right.
80% of the time he's being a phenomenal child.
Right.
Which then what would be that thought for yourself for reflecting on you at that point?
How do you mean?
Okay, so you know he's doing well 80% of the time. Does that really support the idea that you're being a terrible mom?
I guess not.
Okay. And you also shared that your other kids are doing great.
Right.
So if you were a terrible mother, do you think those other 3 kids would be doing as well?
No, I guess you're right. I hadn't really thought of it that way.
Okay. So that's why I wanted you to do that thought record.
Okay.
It kind of helps you evaluate what you're thinking.
Right.
And we're actually going to take that a little step further.
Okay.
Now, tell me a little bit more about this deadline you missed at work.
Okay. So I had a deadline. Every month we have a big report that we have to send off to our supervisor, and I missed it. I did not get mine in on time. I actually had to it's due on like the last Friday of the month, and I had to turn mine in on Saturday. And I mean, I'm certainly not the only one that ever misses deadlines, but I usually don't miss deadlines. And so when that happened and I realized that I didn't turn it in and I had to turn it in late, it made me feel really bad. And I just felt like that's just not like me to miss deadlines. And so I was really angry at myself and a little frustrated that I had done that.
Sounds like you might have even been a little disappointed in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Okay. So tell me what's happened work-wise in the last week that that caused you to kind of say get behind a little bit or miss your deadline.
I mean, lots of things. I mean, I had lots of clients that I had to see, and I had some new people, and so just getting them kind of started and compiling all their information. I had the report ready, and I had all the information in it, but I just didn't send it like at the end of the day. So then I got an email reminder saying, hey, you haven't done your report yet. And I was like, oh my gosh. So, I mean, it wasn't really that late, and I don't even think that I'm going to get in trouble or anything because I've never been late before, but it made me feel really terrible that I just was kind of.
It also sounds like you were a little overwhelmed. Do you think that maybe it was something you just kind of forgot because you were so overwhelmed?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this week I got called twice at the principal's office, and then I had all this stuff at work, and so it just kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Everything
right.
hitting all at once.
Right.
So definitely, did you, when you had that deadline, you said that you just felt down, and do you think at any point during this week that depression caused you to also not be able to get that deadline? Or was it just that you were just overwhelmed?
I mean, I did feel a little overwhelmed with everything, just juggling both, like taking care of my son at school, or my kids, and then the work thing. So I don't know if I've missed a deadline because I was feeling depressed. I feel like everything was just overwhelming this week.
Okay, so not really something that's made you have any depressive reactions, or you just got a little behind.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. The third thing you shared was that you had feelings that you were worthless.
Right.
And it seemed like those were kind of in conjunction with your son. Tell me what's going through your mind when you think that thought.
That I just can't do anything right. That sometimes it's just not even worth trying to do stuff. Like the odds are against me, kind of like I can't do anything.
Okay, so feeling like you can't do things right. Okay. Can you give me any evidence as to why you think you can't do things right? Is there any evidence to support that?
I mean, from time to time, I maybe do things wrong, but generally speaking, I mean, I try to do things the right way and meet people's expectations. It's just sometimes it just feels like that's impossible.
Okay. Well, remember those that we were talking about, cognitive distortions.
Right.
And there's kind of like a list of 10 or so of those things that happen. And one of those things is called magnification and minification. And it's kind of like where you evaluate yourself or your situation, and you focus more on the negative things that have happened instead of the positive.
Oh, that's a thing that has a name?
Yeah. And so just by some of the things you've shared, you've really this week been overwhelmed. You've focused on your son's misbehavior, even though we realized that it was only 20% of the time.
Right.
And that you got overwhelmed at work, but you didn't feel like it was really anything that consistently happens. It just occasionally happens.
Right.
And like I said before, those distortions are normal.
Okay.
And those distortions and then again cause us to feel a certain way.
Okay.
And it's kind of just in our makeup per se.
Right.
So one of those things is called a core belief.
Okay.
And that's kind of when you share things like, I feel like I'm worthless. I can't do anything right.
Okay.
And so I want to share with you that those things are normal. But what we want to do is give you some skills to kind of revert that type of thinking into a positive thought. Okay? Just like we did earlier by making you realize that your son's really only bad 20% of the time.
Right.
And we all understand that there's no child that's perfect.
Right.
We're all going to have mistakes. We as adults make them too.
Right.
That's how we learn.
Right.
So what I want you to do is anytime you have that feeling of I feel worthless or anything, what I'm going to do here is give you a sheet on those cognitive distortions.
Okay.
And I want you to use your thought record again. So this is homework that we're going to do for our next session.
Oh, okay. So we're going to use the homework from last week, and then we're going to add to...
Yeah, we're going to keep you doing that thought record. And then what we're going to do is every time you have one of those thoughts, I want you to look at this list of distortions and see if any of them apply to that thought. And then maybe write down how you can have a positive reaction to that same situation. So like if your son misbehaves, your first thought when you get that call, I want you to write that down and then, kind of go through it and say, well, this is maybe something I'm doing.
Right.
If you're not seeing a cognitive distortion, that's okay. I
Okay.
want you to still write down those thoughts so
Okay.
that we can process them in our next session.
Okay.
Okay?
Ooh, discounting and disqualifying the positive.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
I
I
got
think, like you said earlier,
a
we
lot.
just kind of forget to focus on those positive things,
Mhm.
or sometimes we just don't hear them.
Right.
But I want to let you know that just the fact that you've came here seeking help
Mhm.
says a lot.
Right.
It's hard to reach out to someone you don't know.
Mhm.
And hopefully as we continue our sessions, you'll just get more and more comfortable.
Okay.
And that's what my goal is for
Okay.
our sessions,
Okay.
is to help you feel more positive and work on those things together.
Mhm.
And just make you realize that you do have a lot of positive attributes.
Okay.
And, a lot of good things
Right.
going on. So, before our session ends, because
Mhm.
it's just about time, I just
Okay.
want to give a little summary of what we've talked about.
Mhm.
We went over last week's homework.
Right.
We did a mood check
Right.
to see how you'd been feeling the past week.
Mhm.
We prioritized the agenda, focused on what was most important to you.
Right.
And we're going to continue doing that on every session.
Okay.
We taught you some cognitive skills
Right.
by modifying those beliefs,
Mhm.
evaluating those thoughts,
Yeah.
and modifying those beliefs that you're going to have from there. We discussed cognitive behavior therapy and
Mhm.
how the mind works with that.
Mhm.
Discussed core beliefs and cognitive distortions and how they're related.
Right.
And then we set homework for our next session. And I would just also, before we end today,
Mhm.
I would like to do another mood check to see how you're feeling now.
Okay.
Again, 1 being the worst,
Right.
10 being the best.
I definitely feel better.
Okay, good.
So I would say probably maybe a 5 or a 6, maybe a 7.
Okay,
I
great.
feel better now that
Right.
I've kind of talked through everything.
Right.
So that's good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling better. And our goal is to get you to that 10.
Right. Right.
So I'd like to get some feedback for you before we end today's session.
Okay.
Can you share with me anything that you thought we could have done differently today?
I think today's session went just fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you feel like we talked about everything that was bothering you from
Right.
the past week?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Well, I also have a form that when you leave our session
Mhm.
out in the office, I'd just like you to fill it out.
Okay.
And it again gives me feedback to
Okay.
evaluate how I'm doing so
Okay.
that I can better serve you as the patient.
Great.
All right, April. Well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming in today, and I'll see you next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.